Hi, everyone. There's something about this moment that doesn't feel like the others. And I think you already know that. Even before anything has been said, even before anything has been shown, there's already something happening in the space behind your chest, that quiet, almost electrical awareness that something is different. Something is not the same as it was yesterday. And you can feel it, even if you can't explain it yet. You don't usually stop like this. You don't usually let yourself sit in a feeling before you understand it. That's not how you were taught to move through the world. You were taught to wait for proof, to wait for confirmation, to wait until something is certain before you let yourself feel it fully. And yet here you are, already feeling something, already knowing in that quiet interior way you rarely talk about that something is approaching. It could be that what's coming toward this moment in your life is bigger than what you've been allowing yourself to imagine. Not because you lack imagination, but because somewhere along the way you learned to keep your expectations small, to protect yourself from the particular kind of pain that comes from wanting something fully and then watching it not arrive. So you scaled back. You learned to want things quietly, to hope in half measures, to prepare yourself for less just in case. Um, but maybe, and I want you to really sit with this, maybe that protective habit has been costing you something. Maybe the very thing you've been guarding yourself against feeling is the thing that's been trying to reach you. There's a particular kind of surprise that doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't knock. It doesn't announce itself with the energy you were trained by movies and stories to expect. It arrives in a quieter register, in something shifting in the texture of an ordinary day, in a moment that looks unremarkable from the outside but feels on the inside, in that place you trust more than you admit, like the beginning of something. And I think there's something like that building right now in the particular arrangement of things around you, in the way certain doors that felt heavy have maybe started to feel slightly less heavy, in the way certain thoughts that used to feel impossible have started arriving with a little less resistance. Not fully open, not resolved, but different, slightly meaningfully different. It's hard to explain, but there are seasons in a person's interior life that shift before anything external changes, where something in the atmosphere of your own awareness quietly reorganizes itself. And you don't notice it consciously because you're living inside it, but something feels lighter. Something feels like it's been given permission to move that wasn't moving before. And that internal shift, that quiet interior permission, sometimes it's the first signal. Sometimes it arrives before the thing itself. Maybe you've been in that kind of shift. Maybe it's been happening slowly enough that you've been explaining it away as mood, as weather, as coincidence. But there's a part of you, the part that brought you here, the part that's been quietly paying attention, that knows the difference between ordinary fluctuation and something that means something. Uh, I want to talk about what it feels like to be on the edge of receiving something you didn't think was still possible. Because I think that's closer to where you are than you've been letting yourself acknowledge. And that feeling, that specific, complex, almost unbearable feeling, is not simple. It doesn't feel the way receiving is supposed to feel in the stories. It doesn't feel clean and open and ready. It feels complicated. It feels like wanting and bracing at the same time, like reaching and pulling back in the same breath, because you've been here before or somewhere close to here, and the thing you were reaching toward didn't arrive the way you needed it to. And you absorbed that, you metabolized that experience, and you built something around it. A kind of structure inside yourself that says, wait, be careful. Don't let yourself feel this too fully yet. Wait until you're sure. And that structure has served you. I'm not going to tell you it was wrong. It wasn't wrong. It was a completely reasonable response to what you went through. But structures built for protection don't always know when the danger has passed. They keep protecting even when what's arriving now is not what hurt you then. So maybe, just maybe, part of what this moment is asking of you is not action, not reaching, not doing anything different externally. Maybe it's something quieter and harder than that. Maybe it's just letting yourself feel the possibility without immediately defending against it, without immediately finding the reason it probably won't work out. Just letting it be possible for a moment in the privacy of your own interior. There's something about the way abundance moves, and I'm not talking about it in any fixed or guaranteed sense. I'm talking about the feeling of it, the feeling of things opening rather than closing, the feeling of receiving rather than constantly managing scarcity. That feeling has a particular quality when it starts to arrive. It doesn't always feel like joy immediately. Sometimes it feels like disorientation, like your nervous system doesn't quite recognize it because it's been calibrated for bracing for so long. You might have been experiencing something like that recently. A moment where something good happened or something felt like it could, and instead of feeling purely happy, you felt something more complicated. Something like suspicion. Something like, why now? Something like, what's the catch? Not because you're negative, but because you've been in the position of hoping before and you know the specific weight of hope that doesn't land anywhere. But here's what I keep coming back to: that suspicion, that careful, protective skepticism. It might be worth examining right now. Not abandoning, not throwing away, just examining. Because sometimes the thing we're most suspicious of is the thing that's actually real. Sometimes the thing that makes us most uncomfortable is the thing that fits most precisely into the shape of what we actually need. And there might be something in this window of time, in these specific days, in this specific configuration of your life, that fits that description. Something that arrived or is arriving that your protective instincts wanted to dismiss. Something that your careful, learned skepticism filed away as too good, as suspicious, as something to wait on before feeling. Maybe it deserves a second look, not a naive look, not a look that throws away everything you've learned, but a genuine, honest, open hearted look. The kind of look you give things when you've decided to trust your own perception instead of your own fear. Uh, there's a moment, and maybe you've experienced it before, maybe it's coming, where something lands in your life and you realize you weren't as prepared for it as you thought you were. Not because it's bad, but because it's real. And real things hit differently than imagined things. Real things have weight and texture and edges. Real things require you to actually be present for them, not just conceptually ready. And that moment, the moment where something real arrives and asks you to actually receive it, can feel overwhelming even when it's good. Can feel like too much even when it's exactly what you needed. Can make you want to step back, to slow down, to give yourself time to understand it before you let it fully in. I think you might be closer to that moment than you realize. Not because I can tell you what's coming or when or how, but because of what I can hear in the particular texture of where you are right now. That suspended quality, that held breath quality, the way something in you is simultaneously reaching and waiting, that's not random. That's what it feels like to be at a threshold. And thresholds, real ones, not the ones we perform for other people. Real thresholds feel uncomfortable. They feel unresolved. They feel like standing in a doorway where you can feel both rooms at once, where the old air is still behind you and the new air is already on your face, and you haven't stepped through yet. But you're close enough to feel the difference. There's something I want you to consider carrying with you after this. Not as a certainty, not as a promise, just as a possibility you don't immediately close the door on. The possibility that what's coming toward this chapter of your life might be bigger than what you've been letting yourself imagine, might be more significant than the cautious, protective version of you has been willing to entertain. Uh, Not because you're owed it, not because the universe runs on fairness in any simple sense, but because of something in the specific quality of where you've been, the particular kind of work you've been doing internally, quietly, mostly without acknowledgement, that suggests something has been accumulating. Something has been building in a direction. And directions, when they've been building long enough, eventually arrive somewhere. Maybe you're arriving somewhere. Maybe this right now, this specific moment, this specific feeling is the beginning of the arrival, not the whole thing, not the finished version, but the first real, tangible, undeniable signal that something is changing, that something is opening, that something you thought had a closed door might not. And when it arrives, fully, in whatever shape it takes, I hope you let yourself cry, not from pain, from recognition, from that particular emotion that has no clean name, the one that shows up when something finally matches the shape of what you've been quietly holding space for. The one that says, here, finally, this. You don't have to be ready. Readiness is overrated anyway. The most significant things in a life never wait for readiness. They just arrive. And something in you already knows that. Something is already here.